slides along. So we'll just move on to the next one. Thanks, Chanel. So this is what we're here to do today. We are going to outline what we're looking to fund. We're going to explain our approach to evaluation, tell you more about the application process and answer your questions, which is basically what I've just said. Next slide, please. Thanks, Chanel. So in terms of the eligibility, and this information is in the guidance documentation, but in case you haven't got to that yet, we are going to fund the preparation and delivery of focused deterrence projects at 3 to 5 sites across England and Wales. Each project will be funded for 3 years in total, and our evaluation will be funded for up to 5 years for us to be able to evaluate impact, longer term impact. Each of the projects will receive up to £1 million delivery budget over that 3 years, and each project application is required to provide a minimum of £200,000 in-kind contribution as part of your application. So in terms of eligibility, all programmes that we select need to be operating in England or Wales. The lead organisation of the application must be either a violence reduction unit or an Office of Police and Crime Commissioner in an area that's not covered by a VRU. You need to believe your work could reduce the likelihood of young people committing an act of violence later in life. And your delivery partnership must include the police, social support partners and community partners, partner or partners for each of those second groups. And your project must be able to demonstrate a clear need to address a serious youth violence problem with a group dynamic in your chosen geographical area. In addition to that, you must have the commitment, skills and experience to provide high quality intelligence analysis and to have relevant staff with the skills and expertise to deliver to the chosen cohort. And last but not least, you must show that you're committed to working with an independent evaluation partner chosen by YAF and to be able to gather and evaluate your project. So I am now going to hand over to Freya, who's going to take us through some evaluation slides.
Thanks, Gail. So typically there are 2 different models of evaluation. Model 1 represents an approach where the project and evaluation are seen as 2 separate elements, and model 2 where the project and evaluation are seen as 2 equally important parts of one whole. Here at YEF, we are working within model 2 as we believe it's the best way of generating high quality information about what works to prevent youth violence. And this does have some practical implications, some of which will be covered in the next slides. Next slide, please, Chanel. So we'll aim to estimate or detect any changes in children's involvement in violence in the areas we're working in, and we'll aim to do this using experimental methods. It's likely that these will involve quasi-experimental designs, given the complex and emergent nature of place-based work such as this, but we will be seeking out opportunities to use RCTs for when conditions of our place-based work allow for that. Next slide, please, Chanel. So at YEF, we have an outcomes framework that sets out a number of primary and secondary outcomes that are important to our mission. For this round, we expect to see some outcomes being drawn from our outcomes framework across the delivery sites. It's ultimately the role of the evaluators to help match important outcomes to each site with the outcomes in the framework, and this will be done during the preparation phase of this work. We also have a core set of measures that evaluators will approve and discuss with delivery partners where individual primary data collection is feasible. Next slide, please, Chanel. So the data archive. There's currently a big gap in the evidence in what works to prevent children and young people from offending, and our plan at YEF through evaluation is to hold data through a secure process in order to follow up on children in the future. This process is called the data archive, and it provides us a unique opportunity to learn what can actually help to prevent children and young people becoming involved in crime and violence. In our place-based work, this might not always be possible, so we will explore the feasibility of incorporating the data archive in our place-based work with evaluators, local partners and communities, but it's most likely to be feasible where individual level data is being collected as part of the evaluation, and the feasibility for this will be tested in the preparation phase of this work. Next slide, please, Chanel. So our key learning questions for the evaluation include: to what extent does the implementation of the focused deterrence framework effectively reduce children and young people's involvement in violence? What are the essential components of focused deterrence that lead to effective implementation? And how can it be applied in different local contexts to reduce youth violence? Next slide, please, Chanel. We'll test those key questions over 2 evaluation strands: a formative evaluation, which helps to inform the local delivery plans and share lessons about effective implementation, and a summative evaluation that will rigorously measure the extent to which focused deterrence can reduce and prevent children's involvement in violence. Next slide, please, Chanel. So prior to the preparation phase of this work, the evaluator, delivery partners and an expert advisor will be expected to attend a series of workshops over a 4-week period of co-alignment. And the aim of this period is to work with us at YEF to bring everyone together to ensure that there's a shared understanding of the high fidelity focused deterrence framework, and to refine high-level delivery and evaluation plans, ensuring that they're all aligned, as well as establishing everybody's roles and responsibilities. Next slide, please, Chanel. So the evaluation partners will be selected based on a competitive tendering process and will have shown the best understanding of the needs of this funding round. At YEF, the grants manager is the main point of contact for delivery partners, and the place-based evaluation manager is the main point of contact for evaluators. And in the co-alignment period, preparation phase and early implementation period will all work together really closely. But when moving beyond an early implementation period, we would like delivery and evaluation partners to continue to work closely together, and then bringing in YEF when issues or questions arise. And I will pass over to Gail to talk to you a little bit about the role of the expert advisor.
Thanks, Freya. So we are bringing in an expert advisors team that will provide a number of functions above and beyond the 3 roles that Freya's just set out. So we will be checking in with the expert advisor to ensure that projects are keeping as close to a focused deterrence approach as they possibly can. We'll be drawing upon the expert advisor and also the wider group to for any peer support, peer advice, and any opportunities really to support the delivery partners to deliver their focused deterrence projects successfully. The expert advisor role will align with the other meetings that we are setting up, so there won't be an abundance of additional meetings. So for example, they will be part of that co-alignment period, as Freya just mentioned, and other meeting structures that we set up throughout the process where we bring the different delivery partners and the evaluator together. They'll be part of those meetings as well. Freya, I think, is it over to you or is it back to me? It's still with me. So how to apply? So you may have noticed if you've had a chance to look at the guidance that we have got 8 assessment criteria that's laid out in the guidance, and they span across 2 key areas: a great plan and also strong capability to deliver. So just running through briefly what we're looking for from applications is our first criteria, and they're not in any order of weighting, is a likely to lead to change. So in other words, we're trying to assess whether if what you deliver is shown to be effective, it can reach many more young people. So that might either be through the ability to scale up a project into other geographical areas, for others to learn from what you're doing, or also a change to be able to maintain the project longer term beyond YEF funding in the area that it's currently delivered in. Secondly, we're aiming to reach the right type of young people. So we're trying to assess whether the people you are planning to work with are in the most need of this type of support. So in other words, that you've got a clearly identified cohort who would benefit from this type of the focused deterrence model. And if delivered well, criteria 3, how likely the project is to achieve the outcome. So again, we're trying to assess whether your approach and intervention is likely to achieve the overall learning outcomes that we've set out. And we're also looking to assess whether police and support services have the capacity to deliver swift, certain and credible responses to group members. The fourth criteria is your ability to deliver. So we're assessing whether you're likely to be able to deliver the plan that you set out and successfully sustain engagement with the people that you want to reach. And we're also confirming whether you're able to provide the required amount of match funding as well. For criteria 5, a worthwhile outcome, what we're trying to assess here is whether you'll be able to change things that are likely to ultimately reduce the risk of young people becoming involved in violence. Criteria 6, we're looking at whether projects are able to deliver at the required scale. So we're particularly interested in the problem profile that you identify and the need that you identify in your chosen geographical area, and how you plan on sustaining the project after our funding ends. Criteria 7 is the ability to reach the right types of people. So assessing whether you've got the right systems in place to mobilise and sustain enhanced intelligence gathering and analysis so that you can reach the right people involved in violence and identify the right cohort. And we're also trying to assess whether your delivery partnership has got the appropriate experience and skills to deliver the programme. And lastly, we're assessing your commitment to evaluation. So we're trying to assess whether we can properly evaluate the project as described by Freya in terms of our evaluation approach, and that you're committed to working with an independent learning partner throughout the process. We're strongly, as an organisation at YEF, committed to equality, and as I'm sure you're all very much aware, children and young people from marginalised backgrounds are significantly overrepresented in the youth justice system. So one of the things we'll be doing is ensuring we'll be taking an account of diversity throughout our assessment process to ensure that our overall range of successful applicants is diverse. Next slide, please, Chanel. So I'm going to pass you on to Chanel now, who's going to take you through a couple of slides in terms of the practical process.
Thank you, Gail. I hope you can all see me. I was trying to just unmute myself, but just to go through very briefly how to make your application. So this is an online application that you'll have to do. We have created a downloadable copy of the application in a Word form, which you can download from our website. And what we do encourage you to do is actually work off the Word document and save that to your desktop or where relevant, so that you've actually got your answers saved. And then when you are ready to submit your application online, you can just do a copy and paste job and actually enter it into our online application. So that way you've got an application where you've got your saved answers. So here's what the online application is looking like. There is a link on our website to the online application form. We ask that you enter in your information and that you refer to the guidance document to help you complete each question. Guidance notes also follow each question. Please send us your additional information to our dedicated mailbox, and the mailbox email is here at the bottom. Unfortunately, you can't submit it on the online form, so that's why we are asking for any supporting evidence, such as your theory of change, any other evidence you want to provide, and also your budget sheet. If you send that to our place-based mailbox fund, our place-based mailbox, we'll get that and apply that to your application. And please note that this is an online application. We will not be accepting Word applications, so please don't send us the Word form that you've completed your answers on. Please make sure that you submit it online via this link here. Back over to you, Gail, for any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Chanel. It might be worth us just coming off the slides for a moment and then joining. I can see quite a number of questions have come into the chat, so please, if you've got any more questions, just keep putting them in the chat and we'll work through the very healthy list that's already arrived. So I'll just bring them up and I'll start picking those questions up. So the first one from Megan Hatton, are we able to share the recording with partners who are not on the call? Yes, absolutely, that's no problem at all. And Megan, you might have missed the beginning, but we're also going to put this recording onto our website, onto the Agency Collaboration Fund page where the application forms are, which you'll have seen already. We'll put this on there so that it's open for anybody else to see. And we will also be writing up questions from this session with answers and putting those on our clarification page as well. So colleagues who haven't been able to join will be able to access those as well. Daryl, we've got a question from Daryl. Are you able to advise who is on the expert advisory group? So we set up, as part of our preparation process for this round, an expert advisory group, and they have helped us along the way shape the specification, which has been really invaluable. They've been made up of a range of individuals, both international and national, people who've had experience in delivering focused deterrence in the past, academics who've been involved in evaluating focused deterrence approaches, and also we've had a member of the group from the Youth Justice Board, for example, and we've also had senior officers from charities and statutory services who deliver support to young people in the criminal justice system or at risk of entering the criminal justice system. In terms of the expert advisory group moving forward, once we've actually chosen our preferred providers, we are going to review that particular group and make sure that there isn't any conflict of interest, and we can't make that decision yet until we know who's actually been successful in going forward. I'm sure you'll understand it wouldn't be appropriate to have somebody who was also delivering the project on the group as well. So we will be reviewing the group and then pulling that together, but that will certainly be available for those successful projects, that they know exactly who's going to be on the group for the 3-year programme. Next question, I'm going to pass this over to either Jackie or Freya, my evaluation colleagues. Could you provide a simple example of what a QED looks like in a YEF funded project?
Yeah, no worries, Gail. I have responded in the chat, but just as an example, the approach that they used in Glasgow was to match a group of young people who received focused deterrence to another group of young people in Glasgow as well that didn't receive focused deterrence. And this was, so they collected secondary data and they matched young people by age and compared the two groups.
Thank you, Freya. The next question is from Shannon Marchesani. Will you be focusing on areas of the country in most need or the highest youth crime rates? No, we've not done that for this. I mean, as applicants, it will be over to you to identify that you've got a specific need in your chosen geographical area and that you can easily identify that need. But we're not weighting any area in England or Wales to be given preference. We will ultimately be looking at those applicants and scoring them against those 8 criteria we've described, rather than particularly focusing on any specific areas. The next question is, how can we identify lead community partners? This is from Mark Powell. For a grant of this value, we would have to put the funding out to tender, which takes 4 to 6 months. Hard to talk with certainty about a specific organisation. I mean, we obviously don't want to tell you how to commission your partners locally, but there are a number of ways of doing this. You may have got community partners that you're already working with, for example, that you've already had put them through a due diligence process for the work that you're doing with them. You may run an expression of interest process so that you've got provisional community partners, and then depending on whether you're successful or not, you might want to do a formal process after that, depending on your local procurement regulations. What we are saying is we don't expect you to have completely nailed down your partnerships, because we know that actually that takes time, and it's more important that you get those partners right, that you get the right partners. So you'll see in the application form that we do expect you to be naming any key partners. For example, you might have the local authority, you might have a specific local voluntary sector organisation that you're already working with in this space, and to name those. But for some of your wider partnership, we don't necessarily expect you to be naming them all at this stage, in recognition that actually it does take some time to make sure you get that process right. The next question is from Simon Smart. Notice you only mention probation as a partner. The yachts are the key partners with young people. We've actually, what we mean by this, Simon, is the yachts sit under local authority. So we'd absolutely expect youth offending teams to be aware of your application, and if young people are involved, particularly those young people who are already in the criminal justice system or at risk of, then it would be an expectation that you'd have your local yacht involved in the application. And similarly, we've referred to probation partner because of those adult people in your cohort who many of whom may well be known or are likely to be known to the probation service, and may currently be actively receiving a service from probation as well. I'm answering these questions, but if any of you have got anything to come back on, or you feel I'm not quite capturing the question, that's absolutely fine. So do come back and drop something in the chat, and we'll open up the conversation. So the next question is from Paul Morrison. Is this funding targeted at areas with significant BAME populations? Answer is not specifically. It is specifically aimed at applications which have got a clear need for this type of approach, regardless of the demographic. So just a similar answer to my previous one, really. We are not weighting any particular parts of the country, but we do want you to show that you've got a particular need that a focused deterrence project would really, the cohort would potentially really benefit from. So we've got a question from Natalie Baker-Swift. We already have a YF funded intervention in Nottinghamshire that supports children and young people in custody. The group we are looking to focus on is USGs, and that's a new one to me. If someone could tell me what that is, that'd be brilliant.
Sorry, Gail, it's Natalie. Urban Street Groups.
Ah, yes, Urban Street Groups. Thank you, Natalie. It is difficult to predict where there may be overlapping beneficiaries, although the potential is there. What impact might this have on the bid? This is a really good question, Natalie, and I think one that broadly has come up in one of our in fact, our only clarification question this week in terms of cohort. So what we're looking for is a specific cohort where there's a crime problem with a group dynamic, but we also recognise that there may be some overlap with other projects going on. Inevitably there will be. So nowhere in any of your areas is nothing happening, and there will be other projects and a certain level of overlap, but there does need to be a really, what I guess what we're not wanting to do is fund existing projects exactly as they are as a means of extending the longevity of a particular programme, because that's obviously not what we're interested in doing. But in terms of the cohort potentially being quite fluid as well, and maybe part of a particular project and then the circumstances have moved on, that's obviously quite a different proposition, really. Did anybody else in the YF team want to come in on this one? I'll move on then. So Helen Davis's question is, re serious violence with a group dynamic. The website says knife crime, etc. If the serious violence was sexual violence, e.g. harmful sexual behaviours within a group, would this be considered under the broad umbrella of serious violence? That's a really interesting question, Helen. Really interesting. I actually don't think that's come up before, but I will say, and my colleagues will correct me if they think differently to me. The key thing here is a crime problem with a group dynamic. The crime problem itself is flexible. So I think that particular scenario would be in scope. Freya and Jackie, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd like to think a little bit more about it, if that's okay, and then maybe we could get back with a more detailed answer. But what you said seems right, Gail.
Thanks, Freya. Shannon, will existing pilot projects that are working well be able to bid for these funds? So this is a very similar question to the earlier one. It really does depend how similar they are and whether it's the same cohort. I mean, what we're trying to do here, as we said at the beginning, is we really want to test in a deep and meaningful way. Can a focused deterrence approach work in the UK context? And so it absolutely depends. You know, what type of pilot project? Is it a focused deterrence pilot or something similar, or is it not connected at all? It will vary completely. We've had similar questions from other potential applicants, which appeared to be similar on the surface, but when we actually had the conversation, they were really, really different, and so could be in focus. In scope, sorry. So potentially, and it might be that we have a brief conversation outside this meeting to check if it's very much out of scope or broadly in scope. Shannon. So that's the last of the long list of questions. Has anybody got any others that you'd like to ask while you've got us? Natalie, come back in.
Hi there. Freya, thank you very much for your sort of brief explanation of a quasi-experiment. I can't even say the word, quasi-experimental evaluation. How does that differ from a randomised control trial? Sorry for my ignorance. It's not my expertise by any means.
Yeah, no problem. So I think randomization is the key point there, in that young people in focused deterrence would not be randomized into whether they would receive focused deterrence or not. And while we're looking for primary data collection where it's feasible in the delivery sites, we also understand that might not be possible as well. So some QED approaches might not use primary data collection either.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Simon.
Hi, yeah. Just to come back on your on the funding side of things, just and to link in with one of your last questions. Something that we've been talking about with previous YEF projects is that VRU units, because they have already got the funding, can set all these projects away and be at evaluation stage, and therefore have a key to access the YEF funding at the point. The danger is that, once again, when you're funding some of these, that the VRU funded projects will there's a chance of double funding, and that automatically means that the non-VRU funded areas are at a disadvantage.
Yeah, that's a good question, Simon. So one of the questions that we've actually got in the application form is asking applicants to set out any other similar projects, and we've made it clear that what we don't want to do is double fund anything. We're interested in complementary projects, which, you know, would make real sense, but we're not interested in double funding things. In terms of, so I don't think in that sense that there's any advantage that VRUs would have over other areas outside VRU areas. We really wanted, we're very aware that there are crime problems with group dynamics in areas outside VRU areas, absolutely. And so that's why we've opened up this round, and unlike some of our other rounds, to police and crime commissioners as lead applicants to be able to recognise that. And of course, it's quite fluid, isn't it? You know, the world changes on month by month sometimes, and so that position can change. So we don't think that there is going to be a particular disadvantage to areas not covered by VRU. But now that you've raised it, we'll definitely make sure that we think about that as we go through the assessment process.
Thank you.
Here, Mark. Mark has asked, question about payment in kind. Is the 200k required from bidders per year or for the lifetime of the project? It's over the lifetime of the project. Simon, is that a legacy hand, or have you got another question? Any other questions? And for those who've asked questions and Freya and I have answered them, do you feel like we've answered them to your satisfaction, or have you, if there's anything that you think actually but you've not quite got the point, now would be a really good time to just say, actually, could I come back to you on that? No, I don't think there's anything. Okay, so it looks like there's no more questions, but what I would, we're going to come back on the question about sexual offences specifically, and also anybody who's on the line, who's and particularly Shannon, because you raised it yourself, about particular projects where you think I'm not entirely sure if this is broadly in scope or not, do come back to us. Or if you've got any subsequent clarification questions, do drop your question into the inbox that we've got on this line. And as we said earlier, we answer those every week and we put those up on the website. So on a Friday, just check the Friday website page and you'll see the basically the whole list of question and answers as we move from week to week. Okay then, well, thank you very much for your time. We're really excited that you've all shown an interest, and we absolutely can't wait to see your applications. And so good luck with it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.